Kurt, Mexican Americans comedian. Hi, Kurt. How are you today?
And astronaut. I consider myself an astronaut.
And he's also an astronaut. And you notice that in the picture behind you, they have the two black women side by side. Why would they segregate them like that? It's like they went white to black and then Asian.
I like it. It's like going to get like a paint swatch at at the hardware store. And you gradually gradiate, and then a bunch of diverse women, none of them steering the ship.
None of them steering the ship. So Trump has gotten a trade deal with the European Union and Ursula von der Leyen, and so it's a good deal for the United States, and it's a bad deal for Europe because a lot of it. So here's the former French Prime Minister says the U.S.-EU trade deal is a dark day for Europe. Here's another one. This guy, his name is Guy. This guy's name is Guy. I like a guy named Guy.
Yeah, hey, Guy.
It's like, hey, Guy, how's it going, Guy? Like a lady named Lady.
How's it going, Guy? Not so good?
He says the EU-US deal is scandalous, a disaster, with not one concession from the American side. Badly negotiated. Well, it looks like Trump arted the deal this then, right?
I mean, I'm glad to have good news. That's the only time you get good news is Europe complaining.
And so this guy, he is the Belgian politician who served as the Prime Minister of Belgium from 1999 to 2008, and he was a member of the European Parliament from 2009 until 2024. So he's saying this is a horrible deal, but some other European people, they're not excited about the deal, but they're glad that we got the deal. So here's the AP's headline. The United States-EU deal sets a 15% tariff on most goods and averts the threat of a trade war with a global shock. So that's the important thing, that the Europeans were afraid there was going to be a trade war, which was going to hurt both sides, the United States and Europe. Yeah. So they feel like, okay, we avoided the trade war, and so we'll take this deal even though we're not crazy about it. But some people are screaming about it. Viktor Orban's one of them. This guy is one of them. The French Prime Minister said that. So here's the deal. Let me just tell you what's in the deal. So there's going to be a 15% tariff on most goods coming from Europe. So that's a lot less than it was before. So Trump wanted to do 30, so it's down to 15. The sweeping announcement came after President Donald Trump and European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen met briefly at Trump's Turnberry golf course in Scotland. It was a very interesting negotiation. I think it's going to be great for both parties, Trump said. The agreement was a good deal for everybody and a giant deal with lots of countries. Von der Leyen said the deal will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. So here's a big deal about it. Trump said the EU had agreed to buy $750 billion worth of U.S. energy. So I'm going to guess that's mostly liquefied natural gas. That was I'm pretty sure. So when they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, it screwed Europe because Europe got their energy from Russia. And so now they're paying 2, 3, 4 times higher the amount that they were paying for energy, and it's screwing their economy. And so now they have to make a deal with the United States to buy almost $1 trillion worth of energy, fossil fuels, from the United States, and another $600 billion more than it already is in America, as well as make the majority military equipment. So they're going to invest $600 billion more. So they're going to spend $750 billion on American energy and then invest $600 billion into the United States. And I'm going to guess a lot of that's going to come through buying military equipment. Yeah. So, because that's the only thing we really make here anymore. He said tariffs for automobiles and everything else will be straight across tariff 15%, and meant that the United States exporters have the opening up of all the European countries. So now wait
a minute, Jimmy, but I'm planning on buying a queer Jaguar.
I want to get a queer Jaguar. Von der Leyen said the 15% tariffs were across the board, all inclusive, and that indeed basically the European market is open. So this turns out this is an amazing deal that Donald Trump negotiated for the United States. And the later news conference away from Turnberry, she said the $750 billion in additional U.S. energy purchases was actually over the next 3 years and would help ease the dependence on natural gas from Russia. Yeah, that's what that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, because we wanted to take away the energy sales from Russia to Europe. And we want the United States to step in and do that. And also there's an idea that Israel could do it with all the gas, the $500 billion that's underneath Gaza. So those are the two big things they wanted to do. They wanted to get United States and Israel being exporters of energy to Europe and not Russia. And that's why they blew up the pipeline. And the fact that Europe went along with that shows you that Europe is broken. Their leadership is broken. And that the fact that they would undermine their own economy and be, toadies for the United States military and the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline, that's exactly what that was. And they're screwing themselves. I don't know why the people of Europe don't overthrow these maniacs who are running the European Union, because that's what they are.
No guns.
Oh, that's right. They don't have guns.
Bring a spork, losers. Try wizardry. That's your guns.
In the meantime, there will be work to do on other fronts. Van der Leyen had a mandate to negotiate because the European Commission handles trade for member countries. So individual countries don't do their own trade deals. The European Union has this woman do it for all the countries. Great. But the Commission must now present the deal to member states, and the EU lawmakers will ultimately, so they have to approve it. And I'm going to guess they will approve it.
Me too, because we already know they're bitches.
Trump has spent months threatening most of the world with large tariffs in hopes of shrinking major U.S. trade deficits with many key trading partners. More recently, he had hinted that any deal with the EU would have to buy down a tariff rate of 30% that had been set to take effect. But during his comments before the agreement was announced, the president was asked if he'd be willing to accept tariff rates lower than 15%, and he said no. And so he did not. He got the 15%. And our friend Arnaud Bertrand, he tweeted this out. This is absolutely extraordinary and beyond parody. A reporter rightly asked von der Leyen, what are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up in this deal? She says none, because the starting point was an imbalance, a surplus on our side, meaning the European side had a surplus, and a deficit on the U.S. side. So we wanted to rebalance the trade relation. This is who we have negotiating on EU's behalf, someone so thoroughly captured, she's repeating almost word for word Trump's insane rhetoric that trade deficits are somehow proof America is a victim that deserves compensation. I'm going to get to that in a second, because trade deficits actually, in a way, signal the United States' strength economically. And I'll show you that in a second. But here she is. Here's the question.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the EU Commission President. What are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up in the deal, if anything?
So the starting point was an imbalance, a surplus on our side and a deficit on the U.S. side. And we wanted to rebalance the trade relation. And we wanted to do it in a way that trade goes on between the two of us across the Atlantic, because the two biggest economies should have a good trade flow between us. And I think we hit exactly the point we wanted to find. Rebalance, but enable trade on both sides, which means good jobs on both sides of the Atlantic, means prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic, and that was important for us.
So it's as if Trump kind of dictated this deal. Yeah. And so here's why us having a trade deficit with Europe, this is according to our friend Arnaud Bertrand. Arnaud Bertrand. I like saying Arnaud. But Arnaud Bertrand, he says, because this person, Sleeknub, says, except she's right. And pretty much all the power is in the hands of the United States. So what did you expect? Arnaud says, no, she's not right. Trump's trade deficit victim narrative is obviously manufactured gaslighting designed to justify wealth extraction, meaning we're going to extract wealth from Europe. Well, we're not actually a victim. And here's why we're not actually a victim. The United States benefits enormously from trade deficits by getting real goods in exchange for dollars that they can print for free. So because we're the reserve currency of the world and we just print money, so we print that money for free and then we get goods for it.
Right.
So the ability to consume more than you produce is a sign of economic strength and the consequence of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. So it's a sign of our strength, not our weakness, that we can print money and import more stuff than we export. That's actually a sign of our strength economically, because our dollar is the world reserve currency that everybody has to use. This is just pure propaganda to make tribute collections sound reasonable. So what he means there is this is just trying to make it sound reasonable what the European Union just negotiated with Trump.
Yeah, well, you know why here's the bottom line. Trump is, all he's doing, but this is why he's never going to release any of the files on nothing, because to him, this is the biggest deal. He is jockeying for a better position for America within the New World Order. He's not doing the thing of F the New World Order that I want. That's why that Nazi broad is going along with him, because either the New World Order is off, she wants to save it too.
Yeah.
So all this thing of tribute, it's all it is. Really, no one should be happy, but that's what it is.
And so someone said, hey, Grok, does Arno have a point? So Grok actually agrees with Arno. Grok says, yes, Arno has a strong point. The U.S. trade deficit isn't victimhood. It's a perk of dollar dominance, letting America import goods cheaply while exporting printed currency. Von der Leyen's rebalancing echoes Trump's protectionist spin, overlooking how deficits boost U.S. consumption and power. The EU concessions in this deal highlight the imbalance in Washington's favor. So the imbalance is in our favor. It's not. So she did do a bad job, but this is all about them trying to save the New World Order, as Kurt Mexican
where the weapons
just said.
Come from. They don't pay for NATO. She's trying NATO. When I say New World Order, I mean scumbag NATO.
Yeah,
and they're so into Ukraine, right?
Yep.
And they're not going to help Ukraine, and they can't.
Yeah.
I want Trump to cut Ukraine off right away, but he's not gonna. So this is saving NATO scumbags.
So this guy says the deal is scandalous, a disaster, with not one concession from the American side badly negotiated. I showed you that before. This guy's name is Guy, and he's the former Belgian prime minister. So this guy says, oh, Guy, this is your fault. You enthusiastically supported cutting Europe off from Russian gas. Making yourself reliant on U.S. energy, a big point of leverage Trump now uses.
Don't trust America. Do you not read history? We're not to be trusted. That's your fault, Guy.
Why did you?
Guy,
so he's saying, Guy, why did you go along with the Ukraine war? Why did you go along with blowing up your energy supply? Why? You're the one who did this, because now that gives Trump all the leverage, because you need energy and you can't get it from Russia, and you did that to yourself, Guy.
Because your countries aren't real, and oligarchs that live in Switzerland control most of everything. That's why, Guy. You supported sending all Europe's weapons to Ukraine, making yourself even more reliant on the U.S. for your defense, a big point of leverage Trump now uses. You are the ones imposing tariffs on China and generally moving to worsen relations with Beijing, making yourself even more reliant on trade with the United States. You keep removing your own leverage, but then expect to get the same deal as if you still had it? Cakeism. At its most stupid. So cakeism means you want to have your cake and eat it too. So you want to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, but you also want to keep getting cheap energy. You also want to have leverage, but you can't give your leverage away and still have your leverage. So
that's called cakeism. Did you ever hear that?
I want all the stuff. I want to eat it and then still have it.
In February, the Russian president said of European distaste for the conflict with President Trump, quote, Trump, with his character and persistence, will bring order there fairly quickly, and all of them, just watch it, will happen fast. Will be sitting obediently at their master's feet and sweetly wagging their tails. That's what the President Putin said of the European Union, and that's exactly what's happening. They're all sitting obediently at Trump's feet and sweetly wagging their tails. He was right. Putin was right. We all saw Princess Ursula Minor, and Trump announced this deal, sitting at her master's feet, although thankfully not wagging her tail. You people are pathetic, fat track bullies. Is that fiat? What does that say? Flat track bullies. I don't know. And it's your fault, guy. So,
I mean, it is.
Here's one more. Collingwood says, if the EU still had good relations with Russia and China, they would never have had to sign this deal. In fact, they would have been quite powerful position to force Trump into concessions in much the same way the Chinese have. But the European Union didn't do that. They maneuvered themselves into a pathetically subordinate position to Washington, a process literally cheered on by Guy, who, if he had any problems with the course of events, it was that they were going neither quickly or extremely enough. Well, the price of that is having a big, crass, orange oaf put you over his knee and spank you until you accept a crappy deal. And that's exactly what they did.
We're like their Israel.
So I didn't understand. We are like their, I still don't understand why Europe went along with NATO and Joe Biden and Antony Blinken and blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline and going along with the Ukraine deal and making enemies out of China. I still don't understand. That was all I could see it was not in their interest. And I've been asking everybody, why are they doing this? And everybody from Jeffrey Sachs to everyone else says, well, they're just puppets of the United States, but they don't know. Nobody has given me a reason why they're such willing puppets of the United States.
Because they're traitorous to their own countries. They would like global governance, is their words, not mine. And so they thought everything was going according to plan and Trump wouldn't get in and they were going to have their thing together. So they went away with every evil thing that they did to their own people because these countries don't matter. They serve transnational oligarchs.
That's why.
Trillionaires whose names you don't get to know.
That's why.
So your countries aren't real assholes. Why do you think they flooded them with immigrants from countries we blew up? Because your country ain't real. So there you go.
And that's why the people voted for Brexit, because they wanted to keep their country and they didn't want to be a part of this garbage.
And then they didn't do Brexit really. And then they blame Brexit.
And then
So enjoy it, Europe. Good thing you don't have guns, right? Because there ain't shit you could do about it.
There's nothing you could do about it. You are now the servants of the global transnational billionaires. That's what this is. So here's how Reuters covered it.
European governments and companies reacted with both relief and concern on Monday to the EU-US framework trade deal. Some saw it as unbalanced, but were happy it avoided a deeper trade war. The agreement will see the US impose a 15% import tariff on most EU goods. It's half the previously threatened rate, but much more than what Europeans hoped for. Cynthia Alcidi is a senior researcher at the Centre for European Policy Studies.
I think this is a glass half full, half empty. It is half full because there is this sense of relief and that the worst outcome is excluded, where the worst outcome could have been 30% tariffs or even a trade war. On the other side, this is not what the EU wanted. I mean, the EU asked for a zero tariff trade agreement, and this is not what we had.
The 15% baseline tariff is half the threatened number, but compares to an average US import tariff rate of around 2.5% last year. Many of the specifics of the deal were not immediately known. The agreement included an investment pledge above the $550 billion deal signed with Japan last week. Hildegard Müller is president of Germany's auto association, the VDA. She was relieved a deal was struck, but warned industry would still take a hit.
The deal will also burden consumers in the United States. It will not only have consequences for Europe. In the long run, products will become more expensive. I believe that this is why it is not a good day for international trade or for consumers.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz welcomed the deal as it averted a trade war, while French government ministers said the agreement had some merits but wasn't balanced. One leading French minister said more talks would be needed before the deal could be formally concluded.
So it seems like most of the people in Europe aren't crazy about the deal, but they're going to accept it. That's
because they got no choice.
Because they got no choice.
By the pussy. He grabbed Ursula. What's her dumb name?
Yes, they got him.
Ursula undressed by the pussy.
They got him. That is what happened. And if you'd like to hear my grab him by the pussycat jokes, you can hear me this Sunday in Oxnard, California, or in Rutherford, New Jersey, or in Manhattan at the Village Underground, or going to be in Canada at Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. All right. We're going to say goodbye to Kurt for a little while. We have a guest coming on to talk about mRNA blood. No kidding. And we'll have, yeah, I know, Kurt.
And we're going to be hopping to Rumble, Jimmy.
Every news story is horrific.
Every news story. All right. So
I torment people at Mothership Green Room with these stories because I'm traumatized every other day.
Well, what's happening is that people are claiming that they've been injured in blood transfusions because the blood came from people who have the mRNA. And so now they're trying to pass legislation to make it legal for you to know where your blood is coming from, and you can choose to get it from someone who doesn't have the M. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. One thing about Jehovah's Witnesses, I grew up, we couldn't receive blood transfusion. It'd be big court battles about it. A hospital was built in New York that only operates without blood transfusions. They use non-blood expanders. They had this back then. And people think that's terrible. And, you know, I mean, if I'm going to die, I'm not in the religion, so I don't care. But Jehovah's Witnesses, very few died of AIDS, for example, in the 80s from the tainted blood. And that blood industry is a bad industry. It always has been. And that's the kind of dangers. Well, remember all the AIDS people got from just blood transfusions?
Yeah, I know people who got Hep C from that. That's a real thing.
I kind of don't want blood still, even if I'm like, I know they've invented things besides that have been around for a while. And this bullshit is another reason why.
Yeah,
I'll watch.
All right, so we're gonna hop over to Rumble, and we'll bring on our guest to talk about the mRNA blood thing, and we'll see you over there. And Steph will read your super chats and your Rumble rants over there. See you over there. See you at Rumble.
Bye.